For the last few months, The Creator has been one of my most anticipated movies of the year. An original science fiction story from the filmmaker that gave us Rogue One, with a solid cast and crew members like Hans Zimmer and Greg Fraser, who continue to rack up accolades in the industry. It's hard to see the movie doing that well at the box office, but in a time of many franchise sequels and movies that feel too much like what's come before, it is wonderful to see a project like this being made. And yet it's quite ironic that The Creator, while being original, is very inspired by the many hits that have come before in this genre, forging its own approach through its filmmaking. For me, it's the best science fiction movie this year, and probably my favourite in the genre since Denis Villeneuve's Dune. So in this video essay, I'm going to be giving you my thoughts on why I believe The Creator is a great sci-fi film, discussing its remarkable visuals, its inspired story, and other elements that stand out in Gareth Edwards' latest project. There will be brief spoilers in this video, so if you haven't seen the film yet, then I'd recommend watching it before checking out my review. Before I get into it though, if you want to see more videos on upcoming theatrical releases like The Creator, then don't forget to support this video by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's dive into my review for The Creator. In my Martin Scorsese video essay the other day, I talked about how I agreed with the filmmaker surrounding the point he made about how there needs to be an equal focus on the art of cinema over just content. The Creator is not a franchise and in fact an original film in a landscape where we get too many samey big budget productions. But ironically, while it is original, it's also a mashup of concepts we've seen before done in a competent way. And right now, that's all I can ask of a film, especially one that isn't being given to us with any brand recognition. Just give me a well-executed, reliable film that even if it doesn't offer the most wildly original ideas, it confidently delivers on what it takes on technically. I had high expectations for The Creator because, for one, I thought the trailers were refreshing ones to see, it looked visually transcending, and director Gareth Edwards had given us the best of some recent franchises. He gave us what I think is the best of the recent Star Wars movies in Rogue One, and the tonally spectacular Godzilla in 2014 minus its human characters. Regardless of that fault, he knows how to give us a well-made movie on a big scale with a respectable budget. And to make a film where artificial intelligence is essentially the minority is to me a somewhat intriguing choice in a period of time where big corporations are creating issues surrounding AI for those in this industry. The transition to the digital creates a worrying prospect, and Edwards has found quite a unique question within that very topic. And that is, in a world at war over AI robots, how do the humans committed to their elimination justify their brutality? It flips the table, if you will, doing something recognizable in a slightly original way, and combining this from a very inspired filmmaking front by what has come before in sci-fi helps to some degree to make it relatable. While the story as a whole is not the most original we've seen, it mostly works due to the film's emotional core, one that stems from the developing relationship between John David Washington's Joshua and Madeleine Yuna Voyles' The Child. We get a performance from Washington that combines what we've seen of him before as a military-based operative with something that is much more touching. Madeleine Voyles' performance as Alfie really aids this, as the actress plays off of Washington in scenes really well, and their relationship becomes more complex as the movie progresses. She's able to play lifelike AI with subtle emotions that successfully taps into the question of whether AI has a true soul. Allison Janney and Watanabe do also bring solid performances in their more militarized roles, but again, it's the dual effort between the two leads that is the most convincing here. Where The Creator's main issue lies is in that of plot development and character creator motivation, leaving you potentially wanting more of less rather than too much all at once. I think when it does become streamlined, it really works, and that is in the quieter moments between Washington and Voyles. The story itself is a mashup of many topics we've seen before, adapted in a more straightforward way. There's comparisons to historical events like the Vietnam War, American invasions of other countries, and the idea of miscommunication between different types of species that leads to an unfortunate war. We get those including the main character reminding us that robots are not real people with programming, and while that is something that needs to be addressed and is a main theme, it could have been done in a more interesting way. But again, while it's not the most fresh approach to these big ideas, it does succeed in bringing a soul. The way the film highlights the consequences of military intervention and the impact it has on both individual people and communities challenges us to reflect on history and the wars that have taken place. Doing so with an emotional viewpoint and connecting its main topics to a very real relationship at the center does help to make it more accessible. There's further thematic and visual comparisons to films of the past like Blade Runner, giving us brutalist structures casting down on fields, houses, and communities. Also, the soldier element with Allison Janney and the US troops feels like a somewhat terrifying version of the Marines from the Alien films. And the religious metaphors assigned with certain elements like the US Nomad spacecraft reminded me of the purpose that the AI ship from 2013's Oblivion had, but this time with it being a human-controlled craft that causes relentless destruction. And at the same time, that very spacecraft becomes the place where Joshua witnesses a temporarily reborn Maya through the form of AI. It's not necessarily a bad thing that it was inspired by science fiction of the past, because it definitely feels right for everything that happens on screen and the integral world building. It just leaves me feeling like it could have been more streamlined in certain areas when it comes to crafting its own cinematic storytelling. From a production and visual standpoint, however, I cannot stress how wonderful it was to see what Edwards pulled off here. Previously, the filmmaker worked in visual effects before moving into the director's chair. He made 2010's Monsters on a very small budget and built the CGI creatures in that project himself. Moving on to Godzilla and Rogue One, you could see his progression in combining practical work with CGI. While I'm not the biggest fan of how CGI has been used in many big movies over the last decade, and prefer when a director takes a more practical route, I do love when a filmmaker can use these tools in the right way, and again combine the digital with the authentic. And I'm pleased to say that the creator has some of this year's most incredible VFX so far, making a $80 million budget look like double that in its highly detailed frames. The VFX feels essential in bringing Edwards' vision to life, and it's definitely set apart from the mediocrity we often see in higher budget projects. Cinematographer Greg Fraser is again an MVP on this, capturing gorgeous landscape shots in Asia and using a more natural approach to the lighting. You can see how Fraser is really becoming a staple cinematographer in the industry, doing beautiful work in film after film, whether it be on Rogue One, the recent Batman movie, Dune, or now The Creator. Hans Zimmer further brings a high quality once again with his score, and while I don't think it's his most striking work, the music does its job and feels like it complements the emotion and tension of particular scenes. The production work helps build out the world and create a believable portrait of a dystopian future. It's not too colourful nor too dark, and the result of it all is an impressively good looking film with an aesthetic that is inspired and yet its own all at the same time. So The Creator, for all of its flaws, delivers a visually stunning and emotionally connecting cinematic experience. We go to the cinema to be transported and to have the imagery, sound and storytelling put us all in that experience. Cinema is an art form, and it's supposed to challenge us and attempt to make us feel something. And while The Creator isn't the most original or the most profound example of that, it did grip me, move me and stun me by by the images it presented. It felt like a combination of Edwards' previous work, yet more so a direct conversation with the science fiction genre itself. Drawing from Vietnam classics, it successfully built its base on classic sci-fi like Blade Runner and District 9. And yet from this, Gareth Edwards was able to craft his own artistic vision of future Earth, doing so with a mix of conventions from action films, adventure, and drama. He does so with purpose and reaffirms that there's not too much excuse now for a blockbuster movie to be badly made or cheap looking. And while it doesn't reach the heights of the tales that inspired it, it does make a very confident effort with much added heart to its journey. But they were my thoughts on The Creator movie. Overall, Gareth Edwards continues to show his strengths as a filmmaker in this genre, with wonderful technical work and a good understanding of what themes can fascinate us. He takes big ideas and gives them a level of intimacy, something which great sci-fi films over the last decade or so have also managed to pull off in different ways too. While I do think there's room for improvement, especially in character work and crafting more unique plot points, I can't deny that I was absorbed in what was happening on screen and how the messages of the film were being delivered. And being treated to a well-made spectacle on that low of a budget just shows again how talented the filmmaker has become. As a whole, I was entertained, thrilled, and moved by many moments, and I was further left with the feeling that it's movies like this that can only be experienced on that big screen. And that underlines the cinematic qualities of The Creator. I'm giving Gareth Edwards The Creator movie a rating of 8 out of 10. But to those who have seen the director's latest film, what were your thoughts on it, and do you agree that it's the best science fiction movie of the year? Let me know down below in the comment section. For more videos and reviews surrounding the latest theatrical releases like The Creator, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like rating and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.